2025 brought new changes to Instagram, which means new tactics, new strategies, new hacks. Now, as we go into 2026, how can online business owners, especially mom business owners who have very little time to spend on content, especially when it's seemingly not helping their business, how can we maximize our efforts on this app? That is exactly what I'm going to walk you through today, what to expect as far as Instagram strategy moving forward into 2026.
Welcome to Mompreneur Mastery. I'm your host, Sydney O'Brien, an Instagram strategist turned content and messaging strategist after watching the online space get louder, buyers take longer, and content turn into a performance instead of real connection. On this podcast, you'll learn how to clarify your message so your content actually stands out in a sea of copy and paste trends and AI noise, and also how to strategize your content across platforms to build the trust and connection that turns followers into clients. All in doable, brain space saving episodes you can fit in between school pickup and reheating your coffee for the third time. Let's dive in.
Changes to Instagram are not new. I feel like constantly we're getting updates that literally nobody asked for, and it always messes with how content gets shown to followers, to non-followers. It oftentimes leads to drops in engagement, which is a pain in the ass. And I think there is like one big takeaway as far as Instagram strategy as a whole that this kind of has exposed repeatedly as this happens year after year after year. But I'll get into that in just a minute. The finer details really come down to when you are a super busy business owner who is kind of working in the margins of your day, especially when it comes to social media content, right? Like you have a million other things to do. Your priority is normally like actual work, like business work. You want to have time to support the clients you already have, not have to post reels on Instagram or like silly little stories. So how can we spend the least amount of time on this while still maximizing the return on that time and effort investment we're putting into Instagram? Now, this isn't new coming from me, but I think that it is something that we are seeing is kind of like being cemented more and more as we see these changes, and that is connection over everything else. Because like I said, whenever there is a change, no matter what it is, there's going to be changes in your reach and engagement as well. And that's just how the app works. Anytime there's an update, there's like these little glitches and stuff happens. So making sure you have a connection so that no matter what updates are happening with Instagram, you still have your people that will see your content, that will connect with you or will seek you out. That's going to be like the absolute number one thing. I remember there was a day when I could just randomly post a reel with any old trending audio. You might remember this if you've been around for a couple of years. And it would immediately get thousands of like views and hundreds of likes. And it was a magical time. And I missed that time. Unfortunately, it is no longer that way. And knowing that there will continue to be updates that no one asked for, definitely looking at the weird Instagram TV. Who asked for that? All I want is for my followers to see my content. Man, anyway, when there are these really random updates and your reach drops or your engagement drops because of it, having that connected following, even if it's not all of your followers, but having your main people still be connected with you is more important than ever. And then knowing what to post to get that connection and to get visible to the right people is more important than ever. So I know I sound like a broken record here, but posting with purpose is way more important than hopping on random trends, trying to get visible, trying to go viral. I know there are like a million different tactics and like little hacks that are being shown on Instagram every single day. And I'm not saying they're all bad. Like they definitely work for short-term things, but for me personally, like you can do whatever works for you. If you have a system that's working for you. For me, when I think of Instagram, I think of it as a tool for my marketing strategy, not the whole marketing strategy. I don't want to have to keep learning new tactics and hacks and hooks that will make me go viral every week. I just want to post according to my marketing plan, keep my blinders on so I don't get sucked into the social media like craziness and then go about my freaking day. If that's you, I have something really awesome for you at the end that's going to help you do that. And it's free. So get excited. Most of my social media management clients, like my one-on-one done for you type of clients, are also not the kind of brands that hop on trends. And they're mostly, it's all lawyers and like medical offices. So it is not in any of their like brand voice to just endlessly hop on these like viral hooks that are currently trending, which is absolutely fine. Even with that and with their posting schedule, which is normally 2 or 3 times a week, they still have gotten more leads. They've increased their, I'm going to look it up here so I can have the actual numbers, but they've grown, they've increased their reach and their engagement over the year. It's kind of been really cool to see just having that strategy, not relying on trends or hacks or these like tactics that gurus are constantly posting. And like, as I'm looking it up, the reason they post those things is because you do get like that small quick win and it gets them engagement. So like it can be helpful for their Instagram to do it and for yours as well. But again, if it's something that's not necessarily helping your business overall, what is the point? It could be helping their business and it could help yours as well. But if we're just focusing on those vanity metrics as a goal instead of like actual leads and clients, you can end up wasting time on things that don't matter. And that really sucks, especially when you don't have the time to waste, you know? So let's see. One client, we post 2 to 3 times a week, started at 454 followers. The end of the year, we ended up with 1,051 followers. So that's some good growth because this one account, I don't do any outbound engagement. My client doesn't do any outbound engagement. And in addition to just followers, because I know I just said, don't focus on vanity metrics, we also started an email list for her. And through Instagram in the past, I think it's been like 3 months, she's gotten 400 subscribers to her email list. So that is working very well, especially for minimal outbound engagement and only posting 2 or 3 times a week. If you haven't reviewed your own, so this is very much an aside, you haven't reviewed your own social media or your Instagram analytics, they've kind of changed how you can do it in Insights where you can't look at the year at a whole anymore. You got to look like at monthly recaps or weekly recaps. But normally, if you use a third-party scheduling tool, you can do it there. I use something called Metricool, Metricool. They have a free version. You don't have to pay for it. Really helpful. I really like the way they break down the insights and like analytics here. But her average reach per post went from 98 at the beginning of the year to 1,100 at the end of the year, which is really cool. Average interactions at the beginning of the year went from 13 to the end of this year. The average was 248. That is a huge jump, 14 to 248. And that's all. And again, this is posting 2 or 3 times a week, not doing any outbound engagements, all having a strategy, knowing your messaging, knowing your audience, and posting with a purpose. If you can hear me hacking up along in the background, I'm going to try and edit it out, but I'm very sorry. Everyone in my house is getting sick. So you don't have to post every day. It was the main takeaway. You don't have to endlessly hop on trends and, test out those viral hooks that gurus are sharing about and telling you to post because that's the thing that's going to get you views. Not once have I used a trend or any of those viral hooks for my clients, and they are still doing really, really well. So as we look ahead into 2026, Instagram, as you can see, is still great for attracting the right people. It's not as great for, getting a ton of new leads. I would not have this be your only visibility strategy, especially if it's not something you want to spend a ton of time on, because you can, but it's going to require a lot more posting and a lot more outbound engagement, which is not for me. But if it's for you, absolutely do that. Love that for you. Having a strategy, knowing your audience, doing your market research, knowing your messaging is going to be so, so important for making any content that you put out work, but especially if you want to do fewer posts. I think Instagram is really great for starting conversations and having conversations and using it as a way to connect with your audience and kind of nurture them and build trust that way. Sharing in stories, replying to stories, talking in DMs, talking in comment sections, building that familiarity. I can talk. I think it's a great app for that, and I love that. Instagram is not great at holding nuance. It's not. Social media is where nuance goes to die. So keep that in mind whenever you're trying to share like kind of complex ideas. That's really more kind of content for long form emails, podcast episodes, blog posts, that kind of thing. I would certainly promote those on Instagram though, like the actual long form content itself, and then direct them to the content, your long form content for the full picture. And again, if you need help figuring out how to do that, wait to the end of the episode. I have something you're going to love. It's not great for doing all steps of the buyer journey alone. Like I said, it can be helpful for visibility, but do not let it be your only strategy for visibility, especially if you are short on time. There are way better ways to do that. But again, for, warming up your audience, doing some educating, building some trust, Instagram is great for all of that. People are more warmed up on Instagram than going through the entire buyer journey there. So it's still short form content. It can do all of the steps, but again, it takes a lot more time and engagement, whereas you can use other platforms in conjunction with your plan to make sure that your time is well spent. So if you are someone who is short on time and wants to kind of make sure you're spending your time and putting in your effort in the right ways to get the new followers, the new subscribers, the new leads, and be able to guide them through that buyer journey strategically, emails, podcasts, and blogs do a great job of filling in the gaps for Instagram. And I'm sure some of this you already know. But if you don't have a cohesive plan for all of these things, you will end up wasting time. And I don't want that for you. So when it comes to visibility, even outside of content, I know content is my thing. These are just some random ideas that I personally have found helpful, but I'm certainly not an expert on these things. Look for bundles, look for speaking and summits, look at podcast guesting, in-person networking, things like that. Really great for visibility. Lead magnet swaps, and a lot of these things that are kind of more interactive, like podcast guesting and speaking and summits. Not only are you getting in front of new audiences, but you're also kind of doing a lot of nurturing and educating at the same time because they're getting a taste of your unique selling proposition, your unique perspective, how you work. So you can do like more than one step with those kinds of visibility tactics. Blogs are a great way to do that too. You can put a lot of your personality and show off your unique selling perspective in blogs. And because of SEO, if you optimize it for SEO, you can get to one blog post and get leads for who knows how long, years, if you do it right. And podcasts, if you have your own podcast, super similar. You can get leads for a very long time if you have a strategy behind it. Podcasts are so great for storytelling. They hear your voice, they hear your tone, they hear your perspectives. It's a great place to nurture and foster that connection. You can tell stories like case studies and build that trust. Just always have a call to action for them to join your world somehow, like join your email list, grab your lead magnet, something like that. So keep in mind for Instagram, no one is buying from a single post. People are normally not buying just from Instagram anymore either. They need to see more of you elsewhere. So have a marketing strategy that has all of your content wherever you're showing up working together, and keep the purpose of each platform in mind. As you do this, just to save yourself some time and effort, content should move people forward to an end goal. Even if you're not having like a big sale or anything, there should be some kind of goal for your content. And no one piece of content is going to do that. That's why it's important to have a plan for all of these different platforms that you're on. It should move people forward. We don't want to just show up to show up. And Instagram isn't the best place to do all the steps of the buyer journey because people aren't scrolling and like thinking that deeply. They're not ready for that there. They're consuming content while going through life. Whereas if you have an Instagram post directing them to a podcast or a blog, they can learn a lot more from you there and get a feel for how you work and your unique perspectives, which will really help them move along that buyer journey for you and your world. So what this can look like in real life is I have this podcast for this week. This is going to be my main kind of topic for the week: Instagram and marketing, online marketing in 2026. Now, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to give a call to action for you to get my new lead magnet. When this comes out on a Monday, I'm also going to send an email to my list promoting this podcast episode. Other emails that week will be talking about things that relate to this main topic and also directing them to my new lead magnet on Instagram. When you see me show up there, I will also be talking about things that relate to this main topic in a much smaller scale, right? Because people don't like nuance and context on social media. They want like short, quick, easy, digestible things. So it'll be like micro topics here with this under this big umbrella of 2026 strategy. And those calls to actions, one will be to promote my podcast episode. The others will be to direct people to my lead magnet. I'm also going to write an SEO optimized blog about this podcast episode. And guess what? It will include a link to my new lead magnet. So when people Google content plans 2026 or Instagram strategy 2026, I will pop up and they will get on my email list and come in my world through that lead magnet. Now, that's just this week for me. You know, I'm not always promoting new lead magnets or even having like big sales. So it's going to look different every week, but that's just an example of how you can tie things together. If you have something else going on in your business, let me tell you about my new lead magnet. It's a custom GPT that I made that can give you 2 weeks of a content plan based on what you're working on in your business now, what platforms you show up on, and how those platforms can work together strategically so you're not wasting time on content that isn't leading your audience anywhere. It's called the Content Chaos Reset. I will put the link in the show notes for you. And I'm really excited to see what content you share after you get a 2-week content plan. It'll save you time, it'll reduce your decision fatigue, and it'll help build those touch points that you need in a meaningful way and do it more strategically. So it saves you time, like I said, and make sure that we're using every platform to its strength. If your content feels busy, but not necessarily effective, you don't need new ideas. You don't need new hacks or trends. You need clarity and you need a plan, and you can get that with the Content Chaos Reset. Again, link in the show notes for that. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm so excited to be back in your earbuds next week. Thank you so much for being here and for listening to me yap on Mompreneur Mastery. If planning your content and strategizing it still feels harder than it should, check out the Content Chaos Reset. You give it a little bit of information about your business and your offer, and it'll plan 2 weeks of content for you, posts, emails, blogs, or podcasts that all support each other so you have a cohesive marketing plan. It's free and it's linked in the show notes, or you can head to sydneyobrien.com/reset, RESET.